Hyperspeed Dash and Spin Manga Issue 3. We start out with a UFO showing up above some panicked Mobians, not humans, in a city. I like that the UFO has 3 legs outstretched for landing. And remember, this comic has the modern designs. So, I'm so confused. A part of the Japanese part of Sonic thought to put Mobians in Station Square, had Mobians live on the same planet as Sonic, and yet this wasn't the case for Sonic Adventure? Why? I guess this manga is just trying to go in its own direction. The text box says, in the year 2002. Now I want to know when this issue was released. How is that year relevant? I love that there's a UFO, by the way. Maybe I would have complained about this being too sci-fi for Sonic years ago, purely because fans complained about the black arms and alien invasion. But I'm way more experienced with the series, so I know better now. I've since read Archie and seen how interesting it could be to have aliens there. And AOSGH had them too. And they weren't completely starved of creativity like the Black Arms, which are just there for an alien invasion. A plot that's probably overdone compared to an alien that collects people in an ant farm, or ant aliens that have bees as their enemies, or a black blob that sucks up anything while growing in size, or a woman that collects aliens in a zoo. All of that is so creative that I actually love aliens in Sonic now. This is the best way to spice things up and make the plot immediately fascinating. They're not a cliche type of alien like the Ben with their alien abductions, and even then, they were developed on, despite their cliche appearance. Well, I haven't seen these aliens yet. I hope it's not piloted by Eggman. That'd be so lame. I also hope that Eggman doesn't appear in this issue. He died last time. Tails looks scared, saying that this is serious and he has to tell Sonic. That's good for the tension and self-aware of the writing. I feel like Tails' only personality so far is the coward who sucks at snowboarding. But I also feel like it's unfair to insult him for being afraid when he always seems to have a great reason to be. It makes sense when he's scared, and he is the kid's sidekick. It'd be unrealistic if he was always brave and fearless. Sadly, he gets abducted right before he could do anything. And sadly, it turns out that the UFO was just a fake on a string attached to Eggman's vehicle. And there's no text box explaining how Eggman survived being frozen in an avalanche for months, so I'm forced to assume that this issue is a prequel to the previous one. Seriously, what squandered potential? There better be actual aliens in this issue. On the bright side, this is more original and creative. I've never seen Eggman use a UFO-shaped thing to capture anyone, and he didn't even have to use a tractor beam to do it. But this is only created for one panel. It can't compare to an entire story of aliens spicing things up. Why in the fuck would the writers think that only Eggman should be a villain? There's a reason why Chaos was introduced in Sonic Adventure. At first I thought Tails was let go to fall back down to Earth and was confused, but it turns out he was placed along with a bunch of other things Eggman stole. Like the Statue of Liberty, a taxi, a crocodile, and a pyramid. I guess he stole them to make money, and it's nice to see the creative variety in all the things he stole. But wouldn't it make more sense if he put Tails and the stuff in a place indoors so that nobody would find them? I'd immediately assumed that they would be sent into a UFO. Tails is brave enough to stand up to Eggman apparently, saying, "Quit making and playing with your weird stuff," and weird is spelled wrong. How did no one catch this? Eggman says that, "You look so lonely when your friend isn't around." Don't worry, I'll catch him too. He's being snarky, but this just makes me wish we got to see a version of him that was good. Then Sonic coincidentally shows up. I have a question. Why was Tails out by himself in the city anyways? He's a kid. Why would he be unsupervised? Was he going to get supplies for his engineering? Why was he even here? This is the kind of question that I wouldn't write a story until I had an answer for. Tails then sees an open outhouse with a toilet, and he says that Sonic came out of the toilet. Why was he in there? There wouldn't be any room for him in the toilet itself. If it's an outhouse, below the toilet would be a septic tank thing. And that would explain why he looks darker, if and only if he was simply sitting on the toilet like a normal person, and then the outhouse was turned over by the movement to here. Really? Sonic went through that? Toilet humor should never be in Sonic. It's bad enough it's in anything else. Sonic tells Tails to shut up, instead of just saying he doesn't want to talk about it. Even Fleetway Sonic never said that to Tails. But OVA Sonic did, so no wonder. He does have an attitude, so... I would have preferred it if he said, "Don't even ask." Like AOSCH Sonic said. I guess Eggman's just being sarcastic when he says that planning something would give him a bad reputation, that this is just a game, because he should know he already has one. He wants to construct his next generation theme park, Eggman Land, not Robotnik Land. So, is this the first time this name has ever been used? Is that literally where it came from? An obscure manga? If so, that'd be cool. He already tried to make an amusement park in AOSCH, but of course it wasn't called this. Eggman Land is a pretty generic and easy title to come up with, but the fact that it's a theme park makes this similarity more suspicious. Eggman says that he intends on making the UFO capture a major attraction. Why is he even bothering? Unless he plans to kidnap people to make them visit, or brainwash them like an AOSCH, he should know he has no chance of anyone visiting, and so building this place is kind of pointless. I guess he just wants to build a theme park because he can, and he wants to say he did. Also, it says Eggland here instead of Eggman Land, but it doesn't look like it's something the fan translators could have added in. It's an actual part of the picture. Why would the original manga have a sign in English? That doesn't even say Eggman Land. So maybe him saying Eggman Land is just the fan translation, and the real name for this place is Eggland in Japanese. Eggman says that everything in the game park is real, like a real tank simulation game. He calls an alligator a dinosaur, saying that even his dinosaurs are real. I guess someone could find this funny, and I am smiling at it. But first of all, Eggman would have no problem making dinosaurs. And second, he wouldn't make himself look like an idiot calling that a dinosaur. I called it a crocodile earlier. I couldn't have possibly known it was an alligator instead. Then Eggman shows a hamster to Sonic and calls it a real monster. Why is he making himself look like an idiot? I'm sure he could make a real monster. Fleetway Robotnik did. Why is he wasting Sonic's time? Sonic states the obvious, as I hope Eggman is intentionally delaying Sonic. Sonic says, "You ran off with all that stuff for this lame joke? Mind if I kick your ass slowly?" That's the most badass sentence he's ever said. He would have said butt in a real translation because cowardice. But the word ass actually makes it work as a badass line of his. He's a teenager with an attitude. If he said butt, the line would have been lame. I can't buy that Eggman would have only stolen the stuff for this. Logically, he would have stolen stuff to make money, or used the materials to make robots. That's it, it's that simple. He says he has a game that would suit Sonic perfectly, and says that because Sonic loves to run so much, he's presenting the real runner. Sonic suddenly got a belt around him and is on a treadmill, which he's attached to. Who attached that to him? We should have seen a panel of that happening. Eggman tells Sonic to run, and I immediately wonder why Sonic would follow his order. It's so obviously a trap. We should at least be told that Sonic can't remove the belt, and so he's stuck on the treadmill. But that doesn't explain why he chose to run, and how he got stuck on it. He looked apprehensive, not curious and excited. So it's not like he's doing this just out of curiosity. He looks unhappy when he guesses that this is not for real running. Eggman says he's fallen into his trap, but all he says is that he's become Eggland's power supply. This would be genius of him, but I'm just wondering why Sonic came to do this in the first place. This would make sense if he threatened to kill Tails unless he did this, and Tails was held in the claw of a robot. Instead, Sonic only did this because he was handed the idiot ball. We weren't told that he was attached to the treadmill forcibly while caught off guard by all the talking. A robot could have attached him to it. So 2 giant light bulbs attached to towers with Eggman's face power on near Sonic. Eggman says that with all the money he'll save from a lifetime of electric bills, he'll be able to manage Eggland. But Sonic can't run forever, doesn't he realize that? He's not a robot. Why doesn't he get Metal Sonic to run the treadmill? That'd actually be genius. There's plenty of other ways he could torture Sonic, and have better ways of getting electricity. He doesn't say that he knows Sonic will eventually die from this, and so he's using it as a death trap. He also doesn't explain that he'll be able to store so much energy that he actually will be able to run the place for his whole life, even though Sonic would die in just days. By the way, if Sonic really came from the toilet, Eggman and Tails would be complaining that he smelled like shit and demand him to leave, wash himself, and come back. He'd have to wash himself very thoroughly, so that one-off joke just turned into a plot hole. Just like in AOSCH, he'd get sick if he didn't wash himself off as soon as possible. And even then, he probably should be sick already. I know that climbing through a sewage pipe to escape prison is actually a guaranteed death sentence. Sonic naturally says damn it at a situation because he could die from this, though it's spelt wrong somehow. He says he could really use Tails' help, but then Tails is put in a barrel. Eggman's smart. Where'd the barrel come from? I guess it's not a Deus Ex Machina for Eggman because it's totally feasible that he had that with him along with everything else. Eggman must have snuck up behind him. But it's impossible to imagine that Eggman would be strong enough to lift the barrel all the way over Tails' head to trap him when it's that big. And Eggman has these scrawny little arms. I have to assume a robot did it for him, we just didn't see it. Or Eggman has super strength, like in Fleetway. Tails implies they got tricked. If that's the case, it's really stupid and lazy that we didn't see how he was tricked. And Tails is a coward. And smart. There's no way to trust Eggman enough. That was actually worse than the simple explanation that I went with. That it wasn't Tails' fault. Well, what he says to Sonic exactly is that he got tricked too. But Sonic's right. What is Tails doing in that? Eggman's entertaining when he says, "And now for attraction number 2. Tails in trouble. To further sell the real point, I will, of course, be using a real sword." That's scary. As is him licking the blade. He tends to have a long, sharp tongue in this manga. Oh, and fangs too. But he's supposed to be a bad guy, so I can see why they went with that odd choice. And I'm dying for anything new and creative after countless continuities of Sonic. So even if he looks too disturbing, I feel like I should at least appreciate it for making the manga more memorable. When you see how his tongue looks, and how wide his eyes are, it's not like he looks like a realistic human anyways. He's not Sonic 06 Eggman. Why is there a period instead of a comma before the word B? He puts the sword in the barrel, but fortunately misses Tails. And right away, Knuckles shows up out of nowhere and goes to fight Eggman. Was the Master Emerald stolen too? Or is this continuity unique by not having him be a guardian all the time? Why didn't he show up earlier? And is that an Echidna statue? He says, "So this is where the idiot who took you to the pyramids is." Sonic asks Knuckles if he was going to the bathroom in the pyramid. Why would he say that, just because he was in an outhouse? Oh, I guess Sonic was just joking and being snarky. And Knuckles relatably got offended being literal-minded, and calls him an idiot and says he was just exploring the pyramid. He's relatable when he gets angry for a justified reason. I miss Sonic X Knuckles already. When he's not being an actual idiot, he's so cathartic to watch. Knuckles says he's going to fill Eggman with holes from these knuckles. This might be the first time it was actually addressed that if Knuckles punched anyone, he'd put holes in them. And I bet he won't actually do that to Eggman. No, that makes sense and be too dark for a comic that just had the darkest thing in the world happen to Sonic. No, not even the treadmill thing. Eggman already forced him to power something with a speed and Archie, and at least there it made sense that Sonic got into that situation. It doesn't look like Knuckles punched anything, but Eggman seems to bounce away while shouting, "Forgive me!" So, was he filled with holes or not? Or did he miss and he simply jumped away? I guess he had rings. Oh, good. Eggman's not totally lame. Because instead of the story ending there, he had a backup plan, and he challenges Knuckles with a badass mecha, which has his glasses and mustache on it for comedy relief. I love the visual design of all of Eggman's robots in this manga. It's interesting and cartoony at the same time. It's got a lot of charm. This is exactly how all of his robots should look like. He shows that he's using a GameCube controller to control the mecha. Well, that took me out of it. But why not? I mean, a game controller does look like a pretty intuitive way to control a mecha or something. It launches a punch, and the punch hits some bricks, and Knuckles dodges it. Even Knuckles fortunately compliments this as amazing power, and it gets knocked away by an extended comical fist. Not that we actually see it impacting him, but I like Knuckles in this story, so I don't really want to see it impact him. Eggman laughs, having fun. I love all the personality he has in this manga. Knuckles complains that he couldn't have possibly known it was coming, and Sonic screams when Knuckles gets hit by a giant ball, and screams his name as he falls into a hole. Wow, he really does care. Predictably, Knuckles can climb out just fine, and yet he's still dazed. So, he had rings, and they just haven't fully healed him yet. I guess Eggman asked him if he's an echidna as supposed to be explained as, he's just that selfish that he forgot. He tries to hit him with a giant hammer, and I love seeing him use the concept of Amy's hammer for once. Sonic again shows he cares about Knuckles, and lampshades that this has gone too far. and runs on a treadmill as fast as he can. This overloads the circuits and causes an explosion. This idea already happened in Fleetway, basically, though here he's on a treadmill, not running in a circle pushing something. He shows moral responsibility by apologizing and makes it through the dust and threatens Eggman. And Eggman, of course, can't make the mecha move. And yet he thinks the reset button will do anything with no electricity. Sonic smacks him away, and I guess he had rings. And Eggman calls the robot late when it says it's going to use the absolute kill technique. Why was it able to move again? That's dumb. Eggman should explain that it's got a secondary energy source. Eggman calls it a fool, saying that it's whacking its own head, and there's an explosion and Eggman is covered in soot, but somehow is alive because I guess he had rings. The story ends with Sonic saying the injuries are real, but he'll be fine next issue. And based on the rules of this manga, probably in 2 seconds. So why say this? This story was pretty awesome. I loved how creative it was and how exciting it got by the middle. At first I thought Eggman was grabbing the idiot ball by stealing stuff just to misname them, and saying that Sonic will play a game and it's just him running on a treadmill. But then I realized that it was all part of a genius plan to use Sonic to power his theme park. Is this an intentional trend in the manga? Where he's actually obfuscating his stupidity? Where he's only making himself look stupid to lull Sonic into a false sense of security? It's hard for me to actually trust that that's the case every time he's an idiot. After all the times he's been an idiot for no reason. Especially in Archie. Even in this manga alone. But if that's the intent, this manga did a genius job. After all my experience, it's so therapeutic to see a Sonic story where it turns out the writer meant to write a character being stupid. And he was only acting stupid as part of a genius plan, instead of 600 stories where the characters are acting like morons, and it's never justified at all, and it's only that way for a failed joke. Here, I think Eggman actually knows what he's doing. Maybe the reason he hasn't easily killed Sonic by just shooting him the last 2 issues was that he wanted him alive as a power source all along. It's brilliant, taking advantage of Sonic's speed. That's a story only Sonic or the Flash could tell. The robot did a great job fighting Knuckles. It was admirable of Knuckles to come to Sonic's rescue. It really feels like he's his real friend. I wish I was told he watched the news, and that's why I knew Eggman was up to no good. Because he came out of complete nowhere to save them all. Eggman completely one-upped all of them. But eventually it turned out he was an idiot after all, because somehow he failed to consider that with Sonic having control over how fast he was running, he'd overload the theme park on purpose by going too fast. If he was really smart, he would have figured out a way to force Sonic to not do that. Brainwashed him or put bombs in him that would blow him up if he ran too fast. Sonic did this in Sonic Boom too. Of course, if he was smart, he'd also know that he has to make Sonic take breaks regularly to go to the bathroom and eat and drink and sleep. And at that point, he should have realized Sonic was more trouble than it was worth when he could just make Metal Sonic run on the treadmill and keep him connected to a recharger. Because he'd get way more energy from a robot constantly running on the treadmill. It'd power down eventually, and needs to be asleep to be fully recharged, but it'd still be much more useful because it'd only have to take a break to recharge. Eggman was pretty stupid to not think of that. There's no reason he wouldn't be able to make a robot that can run at the speed of sound instead of simply hovering at the speed of sound. There's no reason for him not to use both Metal Sonic and Sonic to power this kind of stuff. I'm assuming he has no Metal Sonic because we haven't seen him in the manga. But there's no reason he wouldn't be able to make one. I guess it's supposed to make sense that Eggman was so excited about the idea of getting Sonic to power something with his greatest power against him that he didn't think it all the way through, even though he's a genius. Maybe he insisted on this plan against Sonic out of spite, thinking it was only karma that Sonic's speed would end up used against him after all the times he bothered him with it. The story was exciting, and it was so creative and impressive that I actually forgave the story for not having aliens in it. But still, teasing me like that with a UFO was unacceptable. He could have simply had a tractor beam do the job without it coming from a UFO. You don't want to have the first impression be negative.